Welcome to the Made for More podcast. You're joining us in our second series titled Walk With, where we explore different issues of mental health that people could be going through and how we can walk with them well. Although we get mental health professionals in this season, none of them are doctors, so please, if you need help or if anything we discuss in the podcast triggers you, pause the podcast and call your GP. Hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of our mental health podcast. We have been having such a good series so far. We had Beck McCulloch last week who spoke about what it's like to journey with someone who has autism and how to support them best. We've had loads of other health professionals, so if you've missed anything, I would really advise you go back and look at the other podcasts. This series is called Walk With. Our last series was called Let's Talk, where loads of people shared about what they were going through, about their struggles. So any of that, go back, have a listen. But today, we are really excited to have Andrew Dornan with us. Thank you so much for being willing to come on our podcast.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're really glad to have you. So would you just introduce yourself a little bit and share who you are, what you do? And I don't want to put words in your mouth for that. So, and maybe a little bit about how you got to here. Why did you want to train in that way?
My name's Andrew and I'm a coach. So a coach really helps somebody figure out where they are now, where they would like to be, and the steps that we take to get there. Yeah. A bit like you're walking alongside. I particularly work with leaders, so I walk alongside them in the journey that they have in their own development. Quite often, leaders, they'll work in their organization and they'll work in their business, but they don't always work on themselves. And the challenges of today's world, it's much more complex than it used to be. So the challenge is to find a way of navigating that. And really it's looking at things like the habits and the mindsets, the approaches that you need to navigate today's leadership landscape.
Yes. Isn't that so powerful, what you just said about that they'll work on like their business and everything, but they'll not work on themselves. And actually, I always find that when you don't work on yourself, it always comes out. In some, it comes out in your business, or it comes out in your family, or you know, it comes out somewhere. So it's actually important.
And the irony of it is, if you actually work on yourself, your organization gets better.
Absolutely.
Because it's this expression, the rising tide lifts all boats. So it lifts you and it lifts all around you.
Yeah, but people don't prioritize it.
Yeah.
And that's where obviously you come in, and that's where you work with them.
I work at the point where they realize they need to prioritize it.
Yeah, they're at a point where they're like, I need something.
Here's the challenge is, do we do it as a result of a crisis? Or do we do like we do when we go to the gym, where we build muscle in advance? And my challenge is to leaders is always build the muscle for leadership challenges in advance, so that when you get there, it's not a crisis.
Yeah. That's so good. That is so good. Like, I just think with anything, like I'm obviously a counsellor, but I think with anything that we get, I'm just like, how much could be prevented if we did, like what you're saying is, Jim, building those muscles instead of just crisis point, we go there. Like actually building that is so key. So whenever we have these things that otherwise we might deem as crisis, some they're not anymore, because we built the muscle, so our resilience rises, you know, so some of those things are easier. And for the people around us to work with us, to live with us, it's all easier. But how did you get to that point? So you're a coach. Why did you want to do that? Have you always been a coach?
No. I left school at 17 and I went to catering college and I trained as a chef. I did that for a couple of years.
And I've had a lot of your food, so you still carry a lot of those qualities.
Here's the thing, some skills are really useful to keep on going with and or carry through your life. That's one of the ones that I never regret doing. I spent 2 years at college. I learned to be a good cook, and I've used it probably every day of my life, but throughout the years, as something that I can offer other people, and around the hospitality and creating community and family. Yeah, food is really important for all of us, no matter what culture. I've lived in a few cultures, 5 countries and 3 continents.
And food is like a common denominator?
Food is a common denominator because it connects us all. So that was my first career. My second one, I went to Queen's and trained as a teacher. And I worked at that for a while. I then trained as a programmer, worked in IT for a while. I then went into community development as a project manager stroke social entrepreneur, where I learned a lot of the kind of project development skills, leadership skills that I needed for a kind of bigger picture stuff. Then I went to Asia, to Thailand, working primarily with churches and NGOs, it's non-governmental organisations, charities, we call them in Northern Ireland, and helping leaders and organisations develop. So as I was coming to, I was going to say to the end of that time, actually, as I was coming to 50-year-old, I'm 55 now, I was kind of going, what am I going to do when I go back?
Yeah.
Who employs 50-year-olds in Northern Ireland now? And what could I do that would leverage what I've learned up to now and take me into the future?
Yes.
So coaching was one of those things because I've always worked with people.
Yep.
Mostly. The bit in IT wasn't. But
Is that why it was short-lived?
That's it, yes. I sat in front, and I was a really good programmer, but I sat in front of a screen and said, I can't believe that I'm investing my life in a computer screen.
Yeah.
Now, that's me. I actually really like programming.
That's self-awareness, that's...
But for me, I needed to have something where people was the context that I did my work in.
Yeah.
So coaching was really great in that I found something that would really help develop people, a bit like putting them in a greenhouse. And, the plant grows quicker and faster in that there. Coaching allowed people to grow quicker and faster. And it kind of worked for me.
Isn't that a really beautiful, kind of metaphor about that? Like faster and quicker and faster. That's just so lovely. So you kind of developed a heart for that. So you came back at 50. And what did the training for...
What did the
training for coaching look like?
I took a professional coaching course. There's a couple of different organisations, the International Coach Federation, the European Mentoring Coaching Council. I'm a member of both, and I have accredited qualifications with them as well.
Yeah.
So took a bit of while and a lot of practice. So many documented
before you're allowed out on people.
Oh no, you're allowed out on people because there's no regulation around coaching.
Okay.
That's one of these things you gotta watch it. So, but I kind of felt one for me around confidence and competency.
Yeah.
I'd always worked with professional bodies before when I was a teacher and things like that. You get your skill to a certain level and you keep on growing it. So I got my skills with a professional body to a level, and then it was practice and learning.
Yeah, you only really, when you're faced with real people, real situations, there's only so much you can learn in a classroom type of thing.
That's right.
So could you just share with us what sort of things you're seeing? So we're talking about mental health. We're talking about predominantly young people's mental health. A lot of the people listening to this podcast will be teachers, parents, youth workers, people walking alongside. So what sort of trends are you seeing at the moment that people are struggling with? Have you noticed a difference or increase since the pandemic maybe? Maybe you haven't, but what sort of things are you seeing most that people are struggling with?
Well, I'm going to give 3 words at the minute. One, connection, belonging, and purpose. And I think they're nuanced and they're different. On the other hand, they're kind of quite connected.
Yeah.
I think we're hardwired as humans for connection. We talked a little bit about that food and how it quite often connects us, but we don't do well alone. And certainly the pandemic, what it did was take, I'm an introvert, so I loved it for the first while. I thrived in my little cave.
Isolated. Brilliant.
But on the other hand, I know that I'm better when I'm with people. I'm better when I'm with teams.
Yeah.
I thrive whenever I have connection with people. So that place, one is connection, and then with that connection is a sense of belonging, that I have a tribe.
Yeah.
We use that word, bandied around, but it's a group of people who are like me, who share something that I do. And then there's purpose. And I think that's a shift we see in our world right now, which is people aren't willing to do stuff unless they know what the why is, what the purpose is, why we have the Great Resignation at work, if you've heard of that, where people are going, no, I actually don't like that work. It doesn't fit my values, or it doesn't fit my purpose, or why I want to do stuff. Why I left IT was because it didn't fit my sense of purpose, and I needed to do what aligned with me, my sense of calling or space that I wanted to work in.
Yeah. And I think a lot of young people are really struggling with that sense of purpose. Like, what does that even look like? Or they don't want to do a job where no, I don't see purpose in that. I need to do something that I feel like I'm making a difference, that I has purpose in. So I think that is really key. So would you say a lot of the clients, those are the main things, like where do I belong, where?
Slightly less. I think it's a human thing, and I may not find that in the early stages, and with somebody younger, they may find that there. Usually somebody who's older is fine, not necessarily, but by the time I'm running into somebody to work with them, they've kind of figured that out.
Yeah.
But they're still trying to get what am I doing here? I listened to one of your podcasts, and Ryan was talking about legacy, so that, and at 31, I'm great. He's thinking already about what do I leave behind.
Yeah.
At 55, let me tell you, once you hit 50 and you're going, what do I leave behind? And you're asking that much more. Where am I investing in stuff?
Yeah.
What am I investing in, and what gets left behind whenever I'm not here anymore? Who have I shaped? What have I formed?
Yeah.
What have I created? And that becomes really important, particularly for a leader.
Yeah. And I think that is something that we ask ourselves a lot younger now, because you read all these people who are like millionaires, billionaires, started their own companies at like 19, 20, 21. So I think that question is happening a lot earlier, and people are now wanting to like create a job. They don't want to walk into one that already exists, but it's like this creativity, this is something they've never seen before. So I think because there's nearly so many options out there now, we work with a lot of young people who are in sixth form trying to figure out, or fifth year, like, am I going to go to university? Will I go to tech? What course will I do? Actually, there's no course to fit what I want to do. So I need to nearly create something else. Businesses, all of these entrepreneurs coming out, which is amazing. The creativity is phenomenal. But then there's this whole comparison thing that comes out with young people that says, well, that's not me. I can't do that. Like, look at them. I want to go and be a teacher, a job that's been around for so long. But actually in our society, it's nearly like the pressure to do something different. And so that purpose, belonging, that's really, really good. So if someone was struggling, so say you were walking along with a young person, say you had maybe a child, or there was someone you knew was struggling with their mental health, what sort of advice would you give on how to walk alongside them? So this series is called Walk With. So what sort of things would you say and how to walk best with them? Obviously, it goes without saying, first professional help is the first. So if they're in professional help, just as a person walking alongside, what advice would you give?
One of the challenges is that quite often we only go to the professional help whenever we're in that crisis space, and there's lots of things that we can do to build that muscle and resilience that we were talking to in the early stages before we get there, so that we're not in that place where when something difficult hits us, we don't have the tools to be able to navigate it. The challenge that is there. What would be my advice to them? I'm not often working with young people, and what I'm thinking of is my journey with my kids who are in their 20s now, and quite often, much of it is what I've talked about. This idea of find a place where you belong. Give yourself to it. I worked with teenagers for 6 or 7 years, actually a bit more than that because I was a teenager and I worked in high schools. But I worked in a community centre, and every summer we ran a summer club for 6 to 11-year-olds. But at the same time we were running that, we also invited some of the young people from the church I went to that were 14 and up to come and serve in that space. And when I say serve, help lead. We had a range of different sports and arts and crafts and various different activities that we did. And I said to them, look, I'm going to give you a job. I'm not going to entertain you. I'm going to give you something to do. And so what happened was they had a terrific couple of weeks because they were investing their lives in someone younger. They were treated as an adult, and they got an opportunity where it wasn't about them, but they give to something which is outside of themselves and for a greater purpose. So part of my advice is find something that's outside of yourself for a bigger purpose than just serving you. Don't look to be entertained.
Yeah.
Look to find something where you can give.
Yeah.
Because it shifts everything.
Yeah, I find sometimes whenever young people can be struggling, or like even myself, whenever I've struggled with my mental health, it makes you actually quite selfish in the sense that you just are inward focused, and ways it's survival. It's in ways it takes so much of you to get through the day at those stages in your life, but that can become where you get stuck. So that's really good advice, that actually go and do something that's beyond yourself. Go and do something that is serving somebody else. Go and do something that isn't just you think about what you're going through all the time, you know.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be people, you know. I mean, I remember my cousin, she was a horse fanatic. So she went to the stables and she mucked out the stables, and my aunt said she came back smelling of horses. But, you know, it was something for her that wasn't, the focus isn't on me, focus is on someone or something else.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of opportunity there if we look.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And one of it at Made for More, we have like 5 steps to help your mental health. And one of that is like doing a hobby, like being active, like going out and doing something, even learning a new skill, like going out and doing something different, and all of these things, even like connecting with other people. So like, it's just as you're saying, like go out, connect with other people, do something to serve someone else. Give. Another step is give, like give of your time, give of whatever that you have to be able to go, and actually it fills you up by going out. It takes your mind off what you're doing, and actually gives you a different purpose. But all these things just generally help us.
When I was in my teens, I was in Scouts, so that was the bit, and it was if I said use the term boy led, we had adult leaders, but we controlled what happened on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And as I got through that, I became the patrol leader, and then I became the senior patrol leader, and my job was to look after and train others in to be Scouts. You know, to tie the knots and use a knife and use an axe without chopping your toes off. And
whenever you used to be able to do all that type of thing before health and safety.
I don't know. You know what? I have no idea whether they're allowed to do that or not. But yeah, hey, listen, that was part of it. I mean, I can remember, you know, that bit where you fold a knot and you teach somebody else to do it, because that teaching of somebody else helps you reinforce the learning that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really brilliant. Really good. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, taking time out and sharing with us. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much, and thank you for the wisdom that you gave, and the advice as well, to get out there, to get out with people, and to give, to do something else, and to maybe serve someone else. It's not just yourself. So thank you for that, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And we will be back next week. As we say, go back and listen to the other podcasts as well. Go back and get some tips and advice. All of the professionals that we have in are giving different advice. They're coming from different narratives of life, of themselves, of training. So go back and listen to those, and do make sure you catch up, and we will see you again next week.